Hello everyone, Loremaster of Sotek here, and I wanted to do a couple things today, just for a little video, nothing super crazy. But first thing that we have to talk about before we get into the actual subject I want to discuss is that it's finally coming. Total War has announced it on Twitter. The official roadmap for Total War Warhammer 3 in 2022 will be out tomorrow. Finally. So I'm super excited to see what they have in store for us. I'm sure many of y'all are very excited, if not at least interested, to see what they have in store for us. I was thinking of doing a prediction video, but then decided, you know what? I think I'm just going to go into it with no expectations. That way I could just kind of have a clear thought, clear mind, you know, not have any disappointments or weird ideas. So I'm just going to go into it without any huge thoughts and see what they have to show us. Since it is for the rest of the year, I feel extremely confident though that we will see all of the kind of pertinent things as far as what's going to be happening with Immortal Empires, where's the Blood Pack, maybe get some information on the first DLC or first couple, you know, stuff like that. But do let me know down in the comments, what are you hoping to see? Is there any particular thing that you're really excited to see them talk about? Are there any things that you're worried about? Let me know, and maybe we can kind of have a chat about that at some point. But as for the actual thing I wanted to talk about on today's video, I spent some time kind of running around in Total War, and I've been thinking about this a lot since I finished my Nurgle campaign on Total War Warhammer 3. And that is that, you know, Nurgle has really, really awful landmarks because he doesn't have any landmarks. And then I played a Zinc campaign, or I'm playing a Zinc campaign, and the Zinc campaign has terrible landmarks. So I kind of was sitting and thinking about it for a while and decided, you know what? I should just make a video talking about this because this is kind of important to me. And I do know immediately that people are gonna be like, well, there's a good mod for this. Yes, I know, but before, you know, I like to try and get problems solved in the base game instead of turning to mods for every solution. Though mods are a great solution, you know, it's nice to try and get them fixed on the main side of things too. So what I did is I basically went and I got all of the chaos landmarks so that we could look at them and compare them, and I could give some thoughts and maybe some ideas on what, you know, kinds of landmarks we could get. So here we're going to start with Khorne, because Khorne frankly feels good to me. A lot of his landmarks are pretty far spread apart, but you know, it's not a huge deal. I don't mind when landmarks are kind of all over the place as long as they are there and there's a good number of them. I definitely think that all of the chaos factions could use more landmarks, and I would love to see more landmarks kind of scattered around the world. It feels like most of the races just kind of have landmarks very, very close to them, or for all the chaos factions, they're all scattered around the chaos wastes. But for Kislev and Cathay, they're all kind of just very heavily centralized. The Ogre Kingdoms I think have a pretty good mix, to be honest. Though I will say that Cathay's got a pretty good number. I mean, Kislev has a ton. Kislev easily has the most, I think. But it's all in those three super big cities. I would love to see Kislev get one or two that are outside of Kislev, maybe near where Boris starts, because we know based on Warhammer the Old World maps that the Kislevite Empire expanded into that part of the Darklands in the past on Zornu's Cool. So it'd be really cool to see like there be some kind of building referencing, you know, the ancient outposts. But let's focus on chaos because that's what we're here to talk about today. So starting with Khorne, we have the Machina Demonium. This one's great. Like this is an awesome building. It gives +3 Khorne corruption in all adjacent provinces, minus 30% upkeep for all bloodletters and exalted bloodletters, and makes recruitment cheaper faction-wide for all bloodletters and exalted bloodletters. Great. That's a fantastic building. I think taking 7 turns to build is a little ridiculous, to be honest, but it is a very, very good building. So this is awesome. No problems here. Next, we have the Wrathgate. This one is pretty crap, to be honest. This one's pretty terrible. Minus 25% allied recruitment cost and plus 6 corn corruption. This is something that has become a bit of a theme in my opinion, the races that tend to have a really bad landmark or a lack of landmarks. The landmarks they do have, for some reason, tend to focus too much on allied recruitment cost or allied something. And while I like the ally system and I don't mind buffs or debuffs to it, I feel like that being kind of the only purpose behind a building is a huge mistake. I mean, if we read the flavor text here, it says, at the Wrathgate, every betrayer will meet their victim, but under its intimidating threshold, it is the wronged that shall be handed the axe. So this kind of seems to imply the idea of, oh, it's this place where people gather or souls are gathered, and those who betrayed someone will get chopped up by the people they betrayed. That's a cool idea, but getting cheaper allies doesn't really evoke much there. For the Wrathgate, I would much prefer to see maybe some sort of system of maybe it generates a amount of skulls every turn, as people are harvesting their betrayers, since you've built up the Wrathgate and are able to harvest the souls that are being constantly slaughtered there. Or perhaps it provides a bonus to recruitment rank for globally, like +1 to all units or something. That could be fun, as you're kind of like adding those entities to your ranks. But this one is it's really boring. It is super, super boring. And there's so many interesting ways you could go with it. Like the corn corruption's okay, but it's localized. It would be much more interesting if it was at least, like all adjacent provinces perhaps. But I think at the very least they should add in some sort of system to make it this doesn't feel worth building. I look at this, it's like 5k gold and 6 turns. You'd probably be better off building anything else. It's a really terrible building. I'm not sure what, this is fine, but it really should have like 1 or 2 other things on top of it. Like I said, my recommendation would be it just generates skulls passively. Maybe it could generate income, or maybe it could give you bonuses to diplomacy with other Cornate factions. Maybe it could give you some sort of, oh gosh, I don't know. Maybe it could make it where, since it's, anti-betrayer, maybe it could give all of your heroes faction-wide, or all your characters faction-wide, a minus 10% chance for heroic actions to be successfully done against them, so you're more resistant to wounds and assassinations and all that stuff. Something like that could be cool, but this one's a big fat F, I will say that. Next up, for Khorne, we have the Kedium Paradox. So this one's kind of interesting. So it's all enemy spellcasters campaign wide, as long as if they are fighting against one of your armies, they have a 50% increased chance to miscast, and you get plus 10 Cornate corruption and plus 3 Cornate corruption in all adjacent provinces. That's pretty good, honestly. It's not amazing, but it does a really nice job. It has a very interesting effect, making it where basically all enemy wizards are guaranteed to miscast against you. I think that's pretty cool, and that's very thematic for Khorne. Maybe the only other thing I would think that could be fun is maybe it could also increase your army spell resistance a little further, or maybe it could lower. What would be really cool is if it. One thing I think would be fun to add to this building would be an effect that makes it where the winds of magic, if an enemy army is in your territory, it gives them -5 or -10 winds of magic to their power reserve every turn. That way, if enemy armies are in your territory, their magic just starts getting really messed up. -5 would probably be fine. But that would, I think, fit very nicely with the theming. I think this building is honestly pretty okay on its own, but if you added that in addition, this would go from being like a B plus to a nice A. Okay, so that's it for Khorne. So Khorne, okay, you know, he had 3 buildings. One was trash, one was amazing, and one was decent. So would definitely love to see more. I would have really liked to have seen a Bastion Stair building personally. Just a nice reference to like Warhammer Online Age of Reckoning, where the Bastion Stair was a dungeon you could do. It was one of the in-game dungeons. That would be a really cool reference. Maybe it could give like recruitment ranks, or a building that synergizes with Juggernauts and Skull Crushers and Blood Crushers. That would be really cool. You know, some kind of focus on maybe like one of the places they're created, or a training yard of some sort, but something that buffs the cavalry in your army, I think would be very, very nice. But and the other thing is, like, none of these landmark buildings, not a single one of the Chaos landmark buildings allow you to recruit any new units. Like, a lot of the Kislevites ones give you access to units earlier than you normally would. I would love to see a building that maybe gives you access to greater demons, or maybe gives you access to, you know, if it was like make a tier 5 building in a major city that for each of the dark gods, make it like a really, really important city to them. Thematically, you know, all of them have one somewhere around the map, and if they manage to claim it and they build it all the way up to tier 5, there's a tier 5 landmark that lets you, or maybe a tier 4 landmark if you want to make it extra. I would say either make it a tier 4 landmark and it lets them recruit greater demons, or maybe it's a tier 5 and it buffs the greater demons, you know, like it gives you plus recruitment ranks or buffs their stats or something, or cheaper upkeep. But that, you know, the greater demons are kind of like one of the big things to go for in the campaign. Not having anything for them is kind of a bummer. But anyway, moving on. So Khorne's like a solid B. You know, he's got a good building, a decent building, and a shit building, but at least he's got one of each. So let's move on to Slaanesh. Slaanesh, we have the Veil of Creatures, which I love the Veil of Creatures. There's actually a really cool page about it in the Liber Chaotica. But the Veil of Creatures gives +4 Slaanesh Corruption, minus 20% upkeep production for Demonettes and Exalted Demonettes, and +3 recruitment ranks for Demonettes and Exalted Demonettes faction-wide. Great, awesome, perfect building, kick-ass. It's a tier 3 building, and it only takes 5 turns. Khorne's version of this takes 7 turns, and it's much more expensive. This one's only 5 turns, and it's 3k gold. I don't know how on earth they're determining this stuff, but you know, I like this building a lot. Great building. Next up, we have the Marcher Fortress. So the Marcher Fortress gives you minus 30% recruitment cost for Lords faction-wide, plus 10 Slaanesh corruption locally, plus 3 corruption to all adjacent provinces, and plus 25% replenishment rate. Here's the thing. This would be so much better. This would be amazing if it was casualty replenishment faction-wide, instead of a big number, but it's only local. Because this is only local, so you have to be around the Marcher Fortress to get this. I think this would be so much better if it was plus 10% casualty replenishment rate faction-wide. Especially because Slaanesh doesn't have very good casualty replenishment. That's kind of one of the major complaints regarding Slaanesh, is that his casualty replenishment is garbage. So getting a faction-wide 5 or 10% bonus, I think 10% would be great. I don't think that'd be overpowered, and that would really help. That's not going to fix the problem alone, especially because it's such a specific structure in a specific place, but I think that would be a good place to start. So this building, it's okay. It's not great. The corruption is nice. Lord recruitment cost, that's okay. If it was Lord and Heroes, I think that would be notably better. But yeah, this casualty replenishment needs to be faction wide. I think local is just, you know, it's not that great. And then last is the Pandemonium. So the Pandemonium is it's one of the only tier 5 structures for the Chaos factions, but it gives you +2 control faction wide, +8 control locally, +5 growth to all provinces, and +3 Slaanesh corruption. Great. That's totally fine. It's not like crazy powerful. but those are some pretty solid faction-wide buffs, and having nice solid faction-wide buffs is never a bad thing. I will say that this is one of those ones that I think would play a lot better in like a Immortal Empire scenario where you're really wanting to expand as much as possible. This feels kind of not that great, especially in Warhammer 3, where it's like, okay, you're really not supposed to expand that crazy unless you're like using a mod to turn off the chaos rifts or you keep playing after you win. But sorry, it's not the Pandemonium, it's the Pandemonium. My apologies. But I feel like this one could use a little more extra spice, or maybe it should be a lower tier building. Like, this would be great if you could get it quickly, but it's tier 5 and it takes 10 turns after you've gotten to tier 5 in order to build it. I'm not super sold on this one. I think that it could still use something a little good. Like maybe it could reduce the cost of seduction faction wide, or perhaps it could provide a bonus to diplomacy with factions you can seduce. That could be really cool. But I would probably add one more little thing, or maybe tweak the numbers a little bit. +2 control faction wide and +5 growth. I think that would be good if it was like a tier 3 building, but for a tier 5 building, I feel like that could be a little more. But, you know, it's okay. All right, and that's it for Slaanesh. So Slaanesh, once again, very similar to Khorne. He had 3 buildings, and one was amazing, one was and one was So if anything, I'd actually say he's above Khorne, only slightly. Still would love to see another building or 2, you know, especially near where they start. I think Slaanesh actually has relatively good access to his landmarks compared to the others, but I feel like all of them should have more reliable access to their landmarks, but you know, it's just my opinion. Zinc. Oh, Zinc. So this one is easily the shittiest building. This is the absolute worst building you can get, and it is a tier 5 building that costs 14,000 gold. Are you kidding? Minus 50% request army cost, plus 30% allegiance points gain per turn, and plus 30 diplomacy with all the demons of chaos. And it's really far away from where Cairo starts. So this makes it where if you get someone to be your a military ally, I don't remember if you can request I think you can request armies at defensive ally, but you may need to be a military ally. But this basically gives you the ability where if an AI faction has an army not led by their faction leader, you can use the allegiance points you've gained to take control of that army for a temporary amount of time. That's 50% reduction. Okay, I guess. Like, that's not bad, but I think a lot of people probably don't use that mechanic too much. And the other thing is that this, because you're playing Zinc, that means this mechanic can only be used on other Demons of Chaos armies, or like Skaven and Beastmen. You can't use this on any of the other factions because you're a demon army, so they declare war on you, and you're at war with them pretty much permanently. Plus 30% allegiance points gained. Okay, I mean, that's all right if that's, you know, once again, a mechanic you really want to lean into. And then plus 30 diplomacy with all the Demons of Chaos. That, you know, basically is like, hey, if you build this building, it makes it much easier to use this mechanic, but this feels weak. Especially because it talks about, like, when the Feathered Lords gather amidst the ruffling of feathers and the countless lies and vying for power, diabolical schemes are hatched. So this seems to imply that it's like a gathering of Lords of Change, so a gathering of greater demons, and this is what you came up with? Ugh. This is, I think, the worst building. Because it's so specific and doesn't actually do anything for playing as Zinc. I would, at minimum, I would recommend some sort of bonus like upkeep reduction or something to Lords of Change. I would also heavily recommend building this building should make your schemes cheaper. It should make the thing that you spend grimoires on to what is that called, the changing of ways system or whatever it is. That unique system that Zinc has where you can like make factions declare war on each other or trade settlements or whatever. The Symposium of Change should make that cheaper for Zinc factions. I would say like 10% or 5 to 10% reduction cost in grimoires for all of your changing of the ways system. That would be great. Like that would have my attention and be like, wow, that's a really good building. But I think it could also use some kind of buff to greater demons for the Lords of Change, since it like directly references them. Yeah, this ain't it. This is not it. Or because the Symposium of Change, where it's like, oh, you're hatching schemes and you're trying to make things happen, that feels like to me it's trying to say, hey, you know that system where you literally manipulate all the other factions by using grimoires to really mess with them? That feels like these are supposed to be correlated, and they're not. So that's at minimum, that's what I would do. Granted, that would be a huge change, making it cost less grimoires to use your changing of the ways mechanic. I think that would immediately fix this building. But yeah, not great. And then the Inevitable City. Man, the Inevitable City, the main hub for destruction players in Warhammer Online Age of Reckoning. What amazing thing could they do for the most famous city of chaos in Warhammer Fantasy? What do? It gives +4 control locally, plus 50% campaign line of sight to all heroes, +3 Zinc corruption in all adjacent provinces, and +10 corruption. Great. Great. That's bad. That's pretty terrible. Gonna be honest. So you get a terrifying, mind-bending city that is one of the only cities that's able to exist within the realm of chaos. And this is what it does. That is awful. I'm gonna be honest. That is awful. I think instead of campaign line of sight, what about +3 recruitment ranks to all heroes? And get rid of that +4 control, man. Make it something like that. Control needs to be faction wide or something better. But like, considering this is like really supposed to be associated, this is more of a, it's kind of like, it's a city. It's this full crazy city. This is where the Inevitable City is, where Archaon gathered his armies during the end times. That's how important this place was. And it's like the main central hub with all these really cool storylines and unique locations and all these crazy things. It's this big Zinchian thing in Warhammer Online Age of Reckoning. And this is the best they could do. Like, just as a reference to the MMO, I would be like +3. You know what? I think it should just be like a +3 or a +5 recruitment rank to all Lords and Heroes. Yeah, +3 or +5, all Lords and Heroes for Zinch. That would be amazing and on brand. I would get rid of the line of sight. And then for the control, I'm trying to think of what idea to me represents. I would have this add to your garrison. Make this add some Chaos Warriors of Zinch to the garrison as another kind of like really cool callback. So have it add like a unit of Chaos Knights to the garrison, or a unit of Chaos Knights and a unit of Doom Knights. And maybe it could give like some kind of bonus to those units, like maybe -20% upkeep reduction for all Chaos Knights and Doom Knights faction wide. Boom, done. That's some really good references. That would be some really powerful abilities. You can keep the corruption. I think the 10 corruption locally is great. I think the +3 in adjacent provinces, that's fine. It's fine. That's what I would do. This as it is, absolutely dog shit. This is terrible. This is not the right. Oh, right. I had a note about this building, but I this is not the image I thought was coming up next. The last building is the Court of the Covenant, which every single Demon of Chaos faction starts with in its home province, and it is simply a building that it adds to your diplomacy with the other chaos factions, the other demon factions, and I think gives you some slight allegiance bonuses. And that building's fine. Like, you start with it in your starting house, and it's a tier 5 building that makes all the other demon factions really, really like you. I honestly think that building's fine because it actually is a very nice building once you get it, because it basically locks in all of the other demons to be your friend. Which is why, bonus, I think the Zinc building, the Symposium of Change, is extra stupid, because that building basically does what the Court of the Covenant already does, and you don't have to travel and go get this ridiculously expensive building way out in the boonies. So yeah, they should completely change what the Court of the Covenant, or the Symposium of Change does. I think what the Symposium of Change currently does makes no sense, and it's really dumb. So yeah, now you may notice Zinc only had 2 buildings, and they were both kind of terrible. So Zinc has only 2, whereas Slanesh and Korn had 3 each, and both of his were awful. So please fix, please fix and improve, because I hopefully I gave some ideas where it could be like, yes, that's a good idea. We should try that. And for Zinc, like, I think all of them should have at least 3. So for Zinc, give us the Crystal Labyrinth, give us the Eyrie of the Watcher, give us the Ruins of the Dead King, the Frozen Moon, the True Liar's Monolith, the 9th Library. Ooh, the 9th Library, that could be cool. But like, just pick any of those and give us buffs to, like, where's our building to buff horrors? Where is my building that gives me upkeep, production, and recruitment rank, or upkeep, production, and something else for all horror units? Like, that should be standard, right, for all the demon factions. All of the demon factions should have hey, your basic foot troop and their exalted version have cheaper upkeep and some better stats, or better abilities. And also, the lack of stat buffs, like, to units is really disappointing. I think Kislev and Cathay have some that do this, but the vast majority of the landmarks in the game, I know none of the demon buildings have like buffs to a unit type stats, which has existed in Warhammer 1 and 2. Could we please get some of those, like some more of those? Like, what about a building that increases ammunition, or a building that increases melee attack or melee defense or something? It doesn't have to be much. Like, just getting, I just love when I get a landmark that's like, hey, hey, those bloodletters you think are cool, hey, they all get +3 melee attack now. Oh, okay, great. Like, that's not going to change a lot, but I'll take it, and it's cool and thematic, and it makes me feel like, ooh, numbers going up. That's neat. The lack of those is a bummer. But, for Zinc, I really would love to see one of the buildings that they talk about in Zinc's Realm of Chaos. So, if I had to pick, I would probably go with, like, the Ruins of the Dead King, or the True Liar's Monolith, or the 9th Library. One of those. Give me the 9th Library and make it increase my research rate by a notable amount. And it also provides a buff to, I don't know, like casualty replenishment or something. And then give me another building that, or maybe give me the True Liar's Monolith, or the Ruins of the, actually, you know what? I think for the 9th Library, you could literally do research rate and then buff all my blue horrors, pink horrors, and exalted pink horrors. That would be great. Now, you may notice that we're at the end of the list, and there was no Nurgle. There was not a single Nurgle building. Not one. Now, you may ask yourself, well, okay, maybe they can't do Nurgle because he has the rotating system, right? He has the buildings that cycle. So you couldn't do a landmark because a landmark can't cycle. To which I would say, yeah, except there's that whole thing where if you, there's that whole thing where Nurgle has multiple buildings that don't cycle. Like, he can build the garrison building that prevents chaos rifts from appearing in his zone, and it actually improves his chances of spreading plagues locally instead of reducing them, and makes it, you know, easier to discover a Skaven Undercity. That building doesn't cycle. And he does have a single landmark building, which is that in Kugoth's capital, he gets the Court of the Covenant, which that's it. And it's like, what? where are my Nurgle buildings, CA? Where are my Nurgle buildings? Please? Pretty please? You know, just looking around, it's like, give me, I don't know, give me the 7 stones. That sounds cool. I bet you could write a nice little lore blurb about those and make it have a cool buff. Give me the great tree. You know, the great tree that we see in the realm, because to point this out, some of these Slaanesh unique buildings are from the actual realm of Slaanesh. Exact same thing for Khorne. Like the Marcher Fortress, you can actually see in the realm of Slaanesh. And for Khorne, the Machina Demonia, that also is in the realm of Khorne. And yet they are also landmarks. So for Nurgle, you know, just do the same thing. Give me the great tree, and it provides like faction-wide growth, and maybe it can improve the chances of diseases spreading, or it gives a bonus to casualty replenishment, which for Nurgle kind of feels like a lot because he's already really good at that. But hey, you know, I can always take more. Or you know, give me the 7 stones, and maybe the 7 stones have a system where they spread Nurgle corruption really well, and they make it they reduce the price of making plagues, or they make it where, I don't know, they buff, you know, they give me upkeep reduction and also buff plague bearers and exalted plague bearers. Give me oh gosh, what other one of these would make a good... Give me the Abyssal Sump. That would be fun. Or what about... we could do the Lair of the 13th Lord. You could do the Lair of the 13th Lord, and people go, oh, 13th Lord. I wonder if that has like a... Maybe that has a Skaven reference. And yeah, sure, make it give you a diplomacy bonus with Skaven. And there's like a little reference about how, you know, the servants of Nurgle and the servants of the Skaven often have aligned ideals. Not always, but sometimes, you know, so it could give like a bonus to Skaven diplomacy, which would be very unique and fun. And then it could give some other kind of fun little gimmick. Maybe it makes your lords or heroes stronger for some reason. You know, you could do you could do the Lair of the Maggot Lord. That sounds really fun and awesome. Like, I don't understand how we got just nothing for Nurgle. I have no idea how we got nothing. That feels like such a oopsie. I don't know if it's because they like, if someone was just of the opinion that, oh, it's just not gonna work, and then they just made it work for one building. But I don't think his buildings his landmarks have to cycle. Just give me cool landmarks. But I'm so disappointed by the lack of Nurgle landmarks. That shocked me. I mean, there's so many cool things here, like the Great Tree and the 7 Stones, I think are easy gimmies. But like Argus the Plague Moon, that would be super fun. You could do the Ossified Hills, the Septic Isle, Arnzapal's Isle, the Titan Graveyards, Nahheim, the Eternal Swamps, the Fields of Tooth and Bones, the Island of Lepers. Like, any of those would be great. Island of Lepers sounds like it would be amazing for like bonuses to Lord and Hero recruitment ranks, and maybe some like you know, other like minor bonuses with them. Just there's so many things here that you could use, and I don't know how they got to finishing that and we're like, ah, yes, we'll just do nothing. Just very strange. But yeah, that's my thoughts on it. Let me know down in the comment section. Do you agree with this? Do you think I'm wrong? Are there any of the ideas that you were like, oh yes, that would be cool, or any of the places I named or talked about? What abilities do you think they should have? You know, what you know, traits or lines should they have? Now, one last thing that is totally unrelated to chaos is this building. I just noticed this and I had to point it out, which is that the Temple of the Jade-Blooded Sorcerers, CA, if you're watching this, which I doubt you are, but if you are, this is a very, very minor critique. It is just something I noticed and just wanted to put in at the end of this video. So it says the spiritual city of Wingsheng is home to the Temple of the Jade-Blooded Sorcerers, the greatest practitioners of the elemental wind of life in all of Grand Cathay. Can we fix, because so when they're referred to as the elemental winds, to my understanding, it's supposed to be the way they refer to the 8 winds of magic. And I think it'd be much more thematic to put Grand Cathay's version of the wind of life in here, the wind of Ghyran, because they don't call it the elemental wind of life, they call it the elemental wind of water, which would be much more interesting and would be like a nice kind of, you know, here's a little reference to the storm dragon with Miao Ying, because she's the storm dragon. She is the dragon that's associated with the wind of life or the elemental wind of water. So yeah, that just, you know, I think that'd be cool. Anyway, that's gonna be it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed it and you learned something or got an opinion or whatever. I'm really excited for what's gonna be announced tomorrow. Obviously, I will make a video on it as soon as that is revealed. So that'll be it for me for now, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.